Ahoy VC, still not on the personal oasis, but I am Isaac from the Blind Island, and we are going to be continuing on with the top 100 favorite albums of all time countdown. Again, this is my favorite, not necessarily what I think is the most artistic or what I believe is worthy of eternal evaluation in the echelons of history. It's what means the most to me. And we're getting to the very pinnacle here. We're in the top 15 now, and I'm going to start probably babbling on a little more about these, so I apologize, but I can't keep quiet on these albums. They're so freaking good. And just want to say thank you so much for following along on this journey. I should have the final video, my top 5, out on Friday. And then on Saturday, I'll be announcing the winner of the Blind Island Personal Oasis Contest. And that will be great. I have some really wonderful video entries, and all of them have been wonderful. I hope to comment on every single one of them. And thank you so much for taking the time. Be sure to enter into that contest by this Friday. So let's get on to the countdown. At number 15, I have Pink Floyd's The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. This record is just a pinnacle of psych pop rock of the 1960s. Syd Barrett was the original lead singer and mastermind of Pink Floyd before Roger Waters and David Gilmour came along and sent Pink Floyd in a brand new, wholly different direction. But Pink Floyd, when they first came on the scene, they were a mix of like the space psychedelia and paisley baroque folk chamber pop. And it really just works so well on this record. Syd Barrett has these playful lyrics. They're kind of like grim fairy tales, where they have this jaunty happiness and bounce to the song, but there is an underlying darkness and the seething instrumentation that you can feel something bubbling right underneath the surface. This is an original US pressing on the Tower label, and it has, in lieu of Astronomy Domine, it has See Emily Play, which is an incredible song. I love that tune, but I really do miss Astronomy Domine being on here. It starts off the album on such a completely alien note. It's like you're going off in a rocket ship and you're strapped in, you're ready for the ride, and it ends on one of the most haunting sing-song tunes that has ever been penned with Bike. It's just like it's peering into the mind of Syd Barrett, and there's this innocence laced with darkness, and you can just really tell that this whimsical, carnivalesque instrumentation that's used eventually breaks down into a cacophonous, absolute madhouse. And that's kind of, unfortunately, where Syd Barrett would be heading in the future. But he offered us one of the best psych pop albums of all time here, and I highly suggest everyone listen to it. At number 14, I have Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. This is, wow, just everything that needs to be said about it is right on the cover. These little lines are the sound waves of a star dying in space amidst a black backdrop. And it literally does signify that this is what it's like to start a new genre. Something has to die for something to be born. And out of the ashes of punk, post-punk was given birth, and Joy Division was the death knell and the beginning of a brand new genre. I freaking love this album. It's like nothing that was ever made before, and very few albums like it have been made since. Ian Curtis's voice perfectly blends this voodoo-esque type of vocal delivery that is in line with crooners and Jim Morrison and an atonal avant-garde quality. His voice is so full of sadness and melancholy. It breaks the heart to listen to. There are so very few moments of joy on here, and which I think is funny because of their name. It literally is almost the antithesis of joy. But sometimes you find comfort in listening to somebody who knows what it's like to be completely alone, to feel this darkness within you. And that's what this album is for me. It's that sad friend that's always there and willing to let me cry on their shoulder as long as they can cry on mine. At number 13, I have the legendary, the immortal Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I could go on and on about this record. You've heard it said before, you've heard it said 1,000 times. It's listed number 2 in Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time. It's listed in 1001 albums you must hear before you die, usually in the short list of top 10s for critics everywhere, and it's for a reason. It's one of the most lush, beautiful, Baroque surf pop albums that has ever been released. I think that there's not a single sour note that's on here, and the concept of it has aged incredibly well. Breaking away from their sunny surf rock tunes of their early years, this is the demarcation point when Brian Wilson wanted to be taken seriously. And some people point to Sloop John B being the weak point of the album, but I disagree. The first half of this album is all about being young, being in love, and just being positive about life. And Don't Talk, Put Your Head on My Shoulder is one of the most beautiful songs of all time. I often will hum this to my wife when we're just having a nice evening together, and it never ceases to bring smiles to our faces. And then Sloop John B is right there in the middle, the only cover on the album, and it's all about taking off, going to sea, and just wanting to go home. But once you're starting to grow older and love starts to grow older, you can't turn back. You can't go back home. And the second side of this album is far more maudlin. Yes, there is the gorgeous love song, God Only Knows, but it continues to get even sadder and sadder and more melancholic, and youthful optimism gives way to this existential dread. And at the end of the album, of course, is Caroline No. Begins with Wouldn't It Be Nice with youthful vigor, and ends in almost this despair of what happened to you? What happened to me? Where is the love that we used to have? Did you always look this sad? Have I always looked this sad? And it's one of those records where it's about growing up. And sometimes there's lots of good things, there's lots of happy things, but there's a lot of sadness, because once you leave youth, it's gone, and you can never get it back. And that's what I hear when I listen to Pet Sounds. And that's why it's one of my favorite albums of all time. At number 12, I have Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. A lot like Pet Sounds, I could go on and on about the music here, but it's been covered to death. Like Pet Sounds, it's a huge favorite here in the VC, always recommended as a jazz album that you have to listen to. And yeah, you do. If you haven't, what are you doing? You gotta listen to this music. It is the gateway into jazz, and even if you don't like jazz, you're gonna like this album, because it is the bedrock for so many moods, and every single one of them has a bit of romance laced with it, with a tinge of sadness. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've heard that, it's elevator music. You haven't listened to the full tune, because if you haven't listened to Blues in Green or Flamenco Sketches in its entirety, or I'm so sorry, it's or So What? then you haven't listened to jazz. Like, it's just an incredible album. And it was flamenco sketches. I am sorry that I kind of got, but this is an amazing record. And it launched 1,000 jazz musicians' careers. And every single player on here is at the top of their game. This is the gateway for jazz, and it's such a beautiful gateway to go through. It's an arc to triumph. And I highly suggest anyone who hasn't given jazz a chance, just give this record a chance, and you will wind up loving it. And at number 11, I have Muddy Waters, The Best Of. Now, I haven't included a lot of comp albums because I think that comp albums are a little bit of a cheat because they don't capture what an artist is trying to say. But Muddy Waters is one of those guys where he can say everything he needs to say in one song. And he has the voice, he has the ability, he has the charisma, he has the tunes. He is the man. And you can tell that bands like the Rolling Stones, Animals, even the Beatles were listening to this, and that's what they brought when they came over from the UK, because this is where electric blues and rock and roll is really born. The long player was in its infancy when this first came out, and I am so blessed to have this on an original US pressing from the Chess label. It is one of the greatest albums in my collection, a true gem, and I can't sing its praises enough. They called all of his singles that he had released through this legendary label, put it out, and for a compilation, there's not a single bad tune, and there also, it plays as though it was meticulously thought out and cascades perfectly. There isn't one song that's placed to the next that sounds like it's out of order. They all play perfectly, one right after the other. If you're not into blues music or you haven't really seen the appeal of electric blues, then you have to give this one a listen. Best of Muddy Waters is an absolute essential blues listen and one of my favorite albums of all time. All right, VC, that was it. Now we're on to the top 10 after this. What did you think of the Gateway Keepers to the top 10? Did you approve? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you have a great day on your own personal oasis. Cheers.